Hello everybody, welcome to Jim's Kitchen. I'm here today with Pete Sarge Frampton, and I first learned about Pete really through the Horton Weavers. Pete's worked with the Weavers many times, both on stage and in the studio. But what I wanted to talk to Pete about really is early days, how he got into music. He's a very well-known guitar player, but I wanted to just talk to him about your childhood and getting into music. So, when did it all start for you?
Well, firstly, thanks for inviting me to the kitchen.
You're welcome.
And we're having a lot of fun, which is what it's all about, right? I was born at an early age, as they say.
Yeah.
I'm from Guernsey in the Channel Islands. Not Jersey, Guernsey. And my mum and dad were both musicians. I was born in 1948, which makes me blooming old. And my mum used to play in the mission church. My father was a harmonica player.
Wow.
And a stride piano player, a la Ross Conway style. Yeah. Not perhaps at professional standard, but in the house we had the stand-up piano, and Dad could be heard in quieter moments of the day. You know.
Did your mum play piano as well?
Oh yeah, she could read music as well, but that's all she could do. She couldn't improvise.
Right.
So she would open a hymn book and play everything straight the way through by sight.
Yeah.
So I learned about that idea of music, and I was always interested in the sound of the piano, but I never really, as a kid, I couldn't get my fingers on it really. Yeah. I used to love fourth harmonies.
Oh, right.
I used to play. I remember doing that. So my ear was being tuned, and I grew up. Early years were living with my grandparents before mum and dad could afford to rent a house, let alone buy one. And I was exploring in the attic one day, a 7-year-old or something, and I came across two things. One was a typewriter, a big old-fashioned thing, and the other thing was a broken ukulele. And all it was the body. There were no tuning pegs on it, no strings or anything. Oh, what's this? Well, I knew, because my gran ran a shop, and she was one of the first in the street to have a TV.
Yes.
And I knew what a guitar looked like, and this looked like a mini guitar.
Yeah.
And so I took it downstairs and said, "Hey, look what I just found. That belonged to your uncle. Unfortunately, he was killed in an accident. And oh dear. So can we get it fixed? I'd like to play it. Yeah. Even if, it's better than a tennis racket, isn't it? It's a proper guitar-shaped thing. So off to the music shop in the town, St. Peter Port in Guernsey. And the music shop was called David's, Mr. David. And they had ability to fix things. So sometime later, we picked it up and it had new violin pegs in there and new catgut strings on it. I didn't know how to tune it or anything, so just twang away and pretend. And my next door neighbour was called David, and he had a ukulele. So the two of us used to, twang away, and probably in the late 50s, you're talking 50s.
I've always said that, which musicians were you aware of at that age?
The main musician, I think, probably, two things. My dad, they had a wound-up machine, right? So you put the little spike in the slot there and wind it up, and your record would go around. So a lot of my mum and dad were dancers. So Victor Sylvester records were da 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 dee da 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 da. That was the Victor Sylvester theme tune for those old enough to remember. And I obviously was watching Children's Hour, and on Children's Hour was Bert Weedon. And Bert was playing some really hotshot guitar for the time, the Boogie Woogie, Guitar Boogie Shuffle, which was his big hit. And he was a presenter, really, as well. So he used to work with two puppets. And a bit like Sooty is Sweet, but it was Ollie Beak. And so I was quite fascinated by that.
Yeah.
I was also fascinated by the fact that, there was a pending guitar for Christmas. So my dad would actually point the Billy Cotton Band show on Saturday night. Yeah. Wakey, wakey, that sort of thing, and there'd be a guitarist, and my dad would actually say, Pete, come and watch this. There, that could be you. Playing big band music.
So would that guitar be playing like jazzy chords?
Yes.
Not individual.
No, you
strings.
wouldn't be able to hear him back in them days, probably.
Yeah.
But my dad was just encouraging the fact that he knew that I wanted to play, and he would show me the opportunities that were available at some point in the future. Look, you could be doing that, and he'd be pointing at the TV screen. Watch him, and you'd watch Bert as well, and try and twang it out on the ukulele or the pending Christmas Roy Rogers guitar. And suddenly you get the pitch pipe and you can actually tune the guitar to where it's supposed to be. And so Guitar Boogie Shuffle starts to work out a little bit more. There's reference points all the time. And Youth Club with David, not my brother David, the other next door neighbour David. Yeah. Youth Club on a Friday night was sitting round in a circle. It was called a campfire. The idea of sing a song, tell a joke, tell a story, the campfire thing, and we used to twang away with, he's got the whole world in his hands, from about 1957, 58, and that sort of thing. So it was a lot of music around, and of course I was a singer as well, so I ended up in junior school, so under 11, I was in the choir. Yeah.
Did you find singing in the choir fairly easy for you to pick up tunes? Did you feel you had a good ear for music? Yeah,
I think the important thing about having an instrument such as a piano in the house is that your ear tunes. Now, the only problem with pianos, they go out of tune. Yeah. So I have what I call reference pitch, not perfect pitch. Right. But I'll tell you this is a really weird thing because I did research it, only because I ended up listening to somebody talking about perfect pitch. Yeah. And some people say there's no such thing as perfect pitch. It's reference pitch. So if your piano in the house is tuned a semitone flat, then your perfect pitch will be probably referencing that. Yeah. Now, also, do you remember that daft professor that used to be on TV waving his arms in the air, explaining scientific facts? Yeah. I once saw him do a test with two orchestral players, right, about pitch recognition and heat or cold, right? And he put these poor sods in a bath. One was cold water and one was hot, right? And their reference pitch was out due to the fact that their body temperatures were out.
How unusual.
Now, the scientific fact was that this professor, I can't remember what his name was now, it'll come to me. Do your research, you can find it yourself. It'll come to me. Anyway, apparently, early in the day, your reference pitch is flatter. And as the day wears on, your reference pitch goes sharp, right? So, at one point in the 90s, I had my own guitar workshop, and I'd turn up there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not a luthier, but a set-up guy, put new strings on, fettle frets, tune a guitar, and everything. And if you tune by ear, nearly every single time in the first thing in the morning, if I tuned a guitar up with new sets of strings, I tuned to E flat.
Right.
Bizarre.
Weird, isn't it?
Weird. Because a lot of people know that.
Well, it is. I didn't know it, but on these modern tuners now, these electronic tuners, you can actually adjust the megahertz, can't you?
You can. Interestingly enough, I actually tuned that Martin guitar there the other day. There's this concept that 432 as opposed to 440 is actually more in tune with the electronic gravitational magnetic field of the globe, right? It's supposed to be the frequency of the universe.
Oh,
Not a lot of people know that.
Because it says 440 on my tuner.
Yeah, it says 440, but you can actually tune it to 432, recalibrate it.
Yes.
And on my phone, I can do that with my. I've got a tuner app in there, and you can actually tune it to 432. Now, obviously, you're tuning it flat, aren't you?
Yeah, slightly. Yeah.
But if you go on YouTube, you'll find that there's some music there, especially sort of meditational sort of stuff, that's tuned to 432, and it's supposed to really settle your brain down and everything. I even found one of Phil Collins' albums at 432 megahertz. So there's this concept that you can get more in touch with the universe by tuning your guitar to 432.
I don't know enough about this, but if you played set E at 440, and then you heard somebody playing at 432, would you notice the difference? Is it it's flat? It's
microtonally out.
A bit flat.
Yeah.
But not a lot.
Not a lot, but it'd be better if everybody was in 432. 440 actually, there's my guitar.
There's a guitar over here, folks. Funnily enough.
Actual 440 hertz is not what everybody thinks it is. It's not the A string.
Right. All right.
That's not 440. That's 440.
So it's still there, but it's
220, and that's 110. So basically,
that's a squirrel.
Come here.
Through the window, while Pete showed us all this, we got a squirrel walk past, two ducks, a pheasant.
It's very countrified around here. It's woo-woo tweet.
Well, that's
so there you go.
That's fascinating.
Today's lesson on a Martin guitar about frequency.
Now, while Pete's putting that back, we're going to get back to where he started from. We've had your school days, and we've had the choir and the piano and things like that.
Yeah.
When did you first get into sort of let's say commercial music? Well, no, I said commercial. When did you first get a paid gig?
Right. Well, obviously, circa 57, 58. Cliff and the Shads were making big noise.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw them at the Palladium. I think it was 1959 or 1960. The school had a trip to London to go to the London Zoo and trip round Heathrow Airport. And we went to the Palladium to see a show. Edmund Hockridge was on it, and the Shads. Yeah. And I loved the Shads. I thought they were really great. Red suits, Italian suits too, I thought Jet Harris was the coolest.
Yeah. Was he the bass player?
He was the bass player. But actually, I also thought that Bruce was cool as well. And I got to meet Bruce later on because he became a publisher and he published a couple of my tunes. Right. And gave him back when he couldn't. but it was a nice thing. He was a lovely guy. Yeah. Is a lovely guy. He's got a great sense of humour as well. So I was learning Shadows tunes and jamming around with friends, blowing up speakers and blowing up hi-fi units and getting told off for that. And so I had this guitar, this electric guitar, which I convinced my parents that I could use my birth money, which is in the post office, everybody gives you a quid or whatever. Yeah. And so I'd seen this guitar in a second-hand shop. I was probably about 12. And it was a Vox Shadow guitar, not unlike one of the guitars that Hank actually started out on. Right. His was an Antori, but pretty much they were all made by the same factories anyway. So I was getting into learning Apache and FBI and all of those things. I was also listening to the Beatles and singing Kansas City and stuff like that. Yeah. So, and I was able to hold my own. My mum and dad used to go to dinner dances. And my dad was a bus driver, and the bus drivers had a band called the Dizzy Diesels. and I used to go to the rehearsal room, which was actually a spray shop for a garage, and
Was it good acoustics in there?
yeah, great acoustics. Yeah, the smell of paint as well. Yeah, clears the nostrils. And I would be helping them out. Pete, what's this chord? So I'd be showing them chords and stuff. So one, I was about 14, I think, and one night we were there, chicken in the basket and everything, and a guy called Frank was fronting the band, and he said, "We're going to get a kid up, and this guy can sing and play guitar." And he gives me his guitar, and it was like an Italian thing covered in contact, vinyl.
Yes.
But Frank was like as portly as I am now, and so the guitar strap was like, it was down my knees. He said, "What are you going to sing?" I said, "House of the Rising Sun." So that was my first real public performance in front of a willing audience.
How old would you be then?
Probably about 14.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
And
it's not an easy song to sing, that, is it? I mean, it's...
No, my voice hadn't changed much yet, so I probably was able to reach the high notes. I still sing it occasionally when asked. It's something that I am able to still pump out. But that was probably, apart from school performances, that was probably my first public performance with a band I knew the guys, but I wasn't normally
thrown in at the deep end there.
So one day I came back from the beach and Mum said to me, "You've got an appointment." I went, "Oh." She said, "Yeah, there was an advert for a guitarist singer to play with a dance band in a local hotel, really lovely cliff-top hotel overlooking the Little Russell, which is the gap of water between France and Guernsey." And she said, "You need to go down there now. They're going to be in the ballroom. They're waiting to see you." Oh my gosh, So what's going on? So I turn up and these old guys, probably about 30, I'm 15, and what do you know? "Oh, I could sing Kansas City." Okay, start. And they catch up, "I'm going to Kansas City, here I come." Okay, not bad. Anything else? "Help" by the Beatles. "Help, I need somebody." Okay, whatever. And they're not popsters at all, so they're jamming as much as I am, And
so did they want you primarily for your singing or your guitar playing, or both?
Both.
Oh, right,
But basically they were old jazzers.
Yes.
The Jack, the band leader, was a kindly old chap. He wasn't old. He wasn't old.
Well,
he's half the age of what I am now. And he bought himself a Vox Continental, because that's what Alan Price played, and John Lennon. And I think he later bought himself a pianette to go on top of it as well, if I remember. But he was a sax player.
Right.
And Brian was a drummer, and a big, tall chap called Malcolm. And we played, and Jack said, "What are you doing Saturday?" So it was, okay, right. So the next thing was, they were playing all the standards, right? So for dance, so it was quick steps and foxtrots, but it was Bye Bye Blackbird. It was stuff that I'd heard on that turntable that we used to wind up, So whilst I wasn't, I remember Malcolm whispering in my ear one time, because we got stuck straight into perhaps 2 nights, Fridays and Saturdays, something, and people would come down for dance, and obviously I was on licensed premises as well, which was not really from a school point of view. So I wasn't perhaps too sharp on the standards at the time. And the other thing was, because Jack was a sax player, he translated all of that on the organ to E flat.
Right.
So, so I had to do a bit of homework.
That's not good on a guitar, is it?
Well, the thing was, if I'd had any sense, I'd have tuned the guitar down to E flat,
yeah.
and then played in normal cowboy keys, you know.
That's right.
But no, I just went away and learned how to play the main 3-4 chords that I needed, which most of these songs had anyway. So that season, I went through a couple of seasons with them at another hotel for the Christmas season, and then for the following summer season, we moved to another beachside hotel called the Grand Rock Hotel, and I played bass for them then.
All right.
And guitar, and I have a recording of that.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been a recordist ever since I can remember, really. And
so in those days, that would just be reel to reel.
Yeah.
And you've still got that.
I've actually got the recording.
Wow.
Which my mum was always able to, you know, when transistor radios came out, we had a transistor radio, and then because she was running a bed and breakfast place, you know, there had to be a nice television, a new television, you know, you get it on the HP and everything. But so the guests come in and they're watching a nice size television, not the little boxes that you get, you know. And so she turned up one day with this message machine, because next door whilst it was a hotel, and alongside it was a garage, all family run, but they also were a bit of a radio shop as well, so you could buy batteries there and all that sort of thing. And she walked in, "What's this, Mum?" "Well, it's a tape machine, and you can leave messages, and you can take the tape off, put it in a box, and send it to somebody else, you know." So we sat there around the kitchen table, playing with this thing, with a little handheld microphone, you know. Well, what do I say? You know, okay, so just, "Hello, this is Pete. We're sat in the kitchen, whatever. And then we play it back. And I go,
"Is that me?"
"That's not me. No. I don't sound like that." Goodness
That's very early introduction into that phenomenon where when you first hear yourself, you don't, "That's not me."
You have no idea. You've got no idea of your dialect, no idea of your accent.
Well, I found out I thought I talked broad, and I didn't think I did.
It was a shock.
But so we've got, you've been in the various bands and biggest bands. What was your first, what we call a group?
Right. As a result of playing with that band, we were playing parties, and the people who employed the hotel for the party would also employ a pop band to come in. So we'd open the night, and I'd sing a couple of pop tunes, and then hand over to the band, and they'd do 2 half-hour spots, and they would be singing songs of the day, the pop songs of the day, and I got noticed. And so I've been in the dance band, that particular dance band, for about 2 years, and it was okay. You know, and also Jack had a shop as well. So holiday times I used to work in the shop. So I was getting paid for playing. I was getting paid for working during the day, selling tea and coffee and God knows what in the cafe, making milkshakes and stuff. So quite a lot of pocket money going on, you know. So you could afford to buy strings, you could afford to buy an amplifier or whatever. So I got noticed, and I got a phone call from a guy, another Dave. He was the manager of a local band who were doing quite well, and they were splitting up and forming 2 bands, one of which was the singer and bass player from this band that had seen me play. And we were wondering whether you'd like to come down to our rehearsal and just sort of see if you want to join the band, you know. And that band didn't have a name at the time, but it became a band called My Generation. And we were playing songs from The Who, Yardbirds, the same old R&B stuff, you know. I've got recordings of that as well.
He's got recordings of everything.
Everything.
We're
Everything.
We're going to wind it up on this first chat. what we're going to find out in the second chat is how we went from my generation to playing with such fantastic groups as the Hawk Weavers.
Quite.
And of course, playing in Portia.
Absolutely.
And who was it? You're playing in Portia, you're playing in a group now called the Barflies, I believe.
The Barflies are my friends from Stoke-on-Trent.
And who were the lads that I saw you playing with in Mornington? Was that the Bog Trotters?
Bog Trotters.
Bog Trotters.
Yes.
Anyway, we're going to talk about all that stuff.
I'm in more bands than sliced bread, mate.
Next. Well, thanks very much, Pete, for
You're
coming. And I'll see you again soon, I hope.
Okay.